Video for UFC Vegas 102. I've matched up most of the people on this card with who I think they should be fighting next, and I'm going to give you a rough time frame on when I think should be fighting. As you all know, I pretty much just do like 3-4 months in advance because I'd like to see fighters be a little bit more active, unless they're certainly waiting for specific fights. But without further ado, let's get into this. The winner of the main event, Jared Cannonier. Now, Jared Cannonier is an interesting situation because he's fought like everyone other than Dricus and Hamzat in the top of the rankings. He's not getting either of those fights because those two are going to be fighting for the title next. And I'm sorry, Jared Cannonier is not skipping the two guys that just beat him in Imavov and Baralho to get a title shot. It's not happening. But Jared Cannonier is back in the win column. He's fought very, very well recently. Even in those losses against the top contenders, Caio Baralho and Nasruddin Imavov, he's fought very, very well. It's interesting because he wins by... He got knocked down twice by Gregory Rodriguez, but he literally did what he was supposed to do, which was weather the storm, win in the later rounds. Tremendous performance from Jared Cannonier. So what do we do with him? I think there is a co-main event this weekend on UFC Seattle, which that prediction video will be coming out on Wednesday. But Brendan Allen and Anthony Hernandez are going to be fighting. I think that's a great fight. I actually don't think Anthony Hernandez is a big favorite. I don't think it's that easy of a fight for him, if I'm going to be real. So I'm going to keep looking into it, going to make my prediction on it on Wednesday for you. But I think the winner of Brendan Allen versus Anthony Hernandez would be the perfect matchup for Jared Cannonier. Jared Cannonier is ranked number 7 in the rankings right now at middleweight. Don't necessarily agree with those rankings entirely, but he's going to stay at 7. He just won via finish against Gregory Rodriguez. Anthony Hernandez is like 12. And Brendan Allen's like 10. The winner of that fight should be looking up at the top 10 of those rankings, and I think Jared Cannonier's the fighter that's going to have to defend his spot the most. If Jared Cannonier wins against one of these guys, then he can kind of have another, like a fight with a Robert Whittaker rematch or a Sean Strickland rematch or something like that, or start looking at, like, again, another contender that he should be fighting if Dricus du Plessis loses, or if a Paulo Costa fight. It's weird because Cannonier's not going to be getting another title shot. It's really not happening unless he fights until he's 43, which is a tough thing to do. He could do, but just don't know how long the chin's going to hold up continuously. So he's going to be fighting these contenders that are up and coming in the division. The winner of this fight's going to be looking for a higher ranked opponent. I think it makes all the sense in the world for a Jared Cannonier to fight him. So I would say, depending on the damage, Jared Cannonier is super active. I would say, dude, the winner of this versus Jared Cannonier, fight night main event in July, first week of July, the first fight night, make that fight happen. I think Jared Cannonier versus the winner of Brendan Allen, Anthony Hernandez, July fight night main event makes all the sense in the world. We're going to move on. Gregory Rodriguez lost. Competitive. He got jumped to fight the number 7 ranked guy. Bold move from the UFC. So what do you do with him now? Because it's like, oh, he took a shot at the rankings, but he lost. But he took a shot at the number 7 ranked guy. I think there are guys in the rankings that he can beat as well. But he's going to need one more win outside the rankings. And I think a guy that just dropped out, who shouldn't have been in there in the first place, but he just fell out of the rankings after his loss to MVP, was Shara Magomedov. I think this makes a ton of sense. Gregory Rodriguez, Shara Magomedov, both guys coming off losses. Both guys, one was in the rankings, undeservedly so, I believe, and the other one took a shot at the rankings and failed. Both fought recently, right? February 1st was Shara's last fight. Didn't take a ton of damage, but lost. He's going to probably be looking to fight in Saudi Arabia or Abu Dhabi when they go there next. I'm willing to bet that Jared Cannonier is going to sit out and wait a little bit. So I would say do a UFC fight night in, if you have it in Abu Dhabi or somewhere in, like Dana was talking about, Qatar. Sometime in July, August, that's probably when I'd expect to see Gregory Rodriguez back. He did take a ton of damage, so I think 6 months off is a little bit reasonable. And Shara Magomedov doesn't usually take a lot of time off, but he could be coming off a win and then end up getting the Gregory Rodriguez fight. I just think this fight makes a ton of sense with both these dudes out the rankings. So Gregory Rodriguez, Shara Magomedov, sometime in the end of July would make a lot of sense to me, honestly. That's about 5 months right there. So July, Gregory Rodriguez, Shara Magomedov. I don't think either of these guys are in this crazy rush to keep going. Or not to keep going, but like to get back into it. Maybe Shara is. Shara might be, but I think you throw a great name like Gregory Rodriguez at him, it might be a little bit more appealing because even though Gregory Rodriguez's grappling is very good, he does like to stand there and strike, and he is very hittable. So Shara might, and his leg, you can kick his legs easy. Shara might see that as an opportunity there, and Gregory Rodriguez, I think he's just thinks he's better than Shara probably. So I'm willing to bet they'd both love to take that fight. So make that one happen. Moving on, Youseff Zalal got a win over Calvin Kattar. It was vaguely impressive. Did a lot of running in that last round, but there was a lot of frustration out of the Calvin Kattar corner. It's like, dude, you do need to find a way to cut off the angles a little bit better. You do need, like, if you threw a body kick or something like that, that's what Youseff Zalal was saying. You did dance around for that third round a little too much, but it is what it is. He got the win, man, and he banked the win. So gets into the rankings, going to be ranked number like 10. I say the Bryce Mitchell fight makes sense. The winner gets to go fishing. I mean, like, that's kind of the way I'm looking at this. If you do Youseff Zalal versus Bryce Mitchell, Big A, Bryce Mitchell, I think it makes a ton of sense. Youseff Zalal's grappling's very, very good. Bryce Mitchell is obviously a very heavy grappler who is an okay striker, nothing great. Youseff Zalal's striking's very great. Now, I don't think that the UFC's thrilled with the performance that Youseff Zalal put on against Calvin Kattar, but you can't give him an unranked opponent here. I think a Bryce Mitchell fight makes a ton of sense. Number 13 ranked guy, you get a win over Calvin Kattar, then you get a win over Bryce Mitchell. You have 2 ranked wins, and then you get to take that jump into the top 5 against a Diego Lopez or Brian Ortega, something along those lines. So I think that makes a lot of sense for Youseff Zalal. Youseff Zalal, Bryce Mitchell. Bryce Mitchell last fought in December, took literally no damage because he fought Kron Gracie. And then Youseff Zalal obviously just fought, did not take much damage at all either. I think Youseff Zalal has been very active and is willing to stay very active. Love to see this fight happen in like May, end of May. Honestly, if you put this as the pay-per-view, the main card opener of a pay-per-view on UFC 315, 316 at the end of May, no, they're not going to go to Canada with this. They won't take Bryce Mitchell. So you're not going to get the pay-per-view in May. But you can have this as the co-main event on a main card of a fight night sometime in May. You can wait until the pay-per-view in June, UFC 316. I'll bet they'll do 2 in June. And you can put this as the main card opener. It's a good fight. It's ranked featherweights. I think it makes a lot of sense. So May, June timeframe, Bryce Mitchell, Youseff Zalal. Now, Calvin Kattar lost and fell out of the rankings. He's now off 2 losses in a row, I believe. Maybe 3. Yeah, it might be 3. Maybe 4. Dude, he's lost. He's got a couple of losses recently, and I think Calvin Kattar's a very, very good fighter. I'd like to see him remain active, though. He didn't take a ton of damage, and I think the ring rust has been doing him in a lot, and just to get back in the octagon, get a good win in there. I think he can... Listen, I think this matchup makes a ton of sense. They haven't fought yet. They're both some vets in the game here at featherweight, have fought their entire lives in the UFC pretty much. It's been, I mean, these guys have to fight each other. You had Edson Barboza, who was supposed to have a fight on this weekend's card in Seattle. Didn't go through. I'm willing to bet Calvin Kattar's ready to make a quick turnaround here. I say you do this sometime in May. You put this as on the main card of a fight night. Edson Barboza, Calvin Kattar. It's a great fight to make happen. Moving on again. Edmund Shabazian, good knockout win. It's kind of win-win, lose-one right now for Edmund Shabazian. Let's give him the Petrosky fight. I think these two dudes fought on the same card. Both got wins, and it makes a ton of sense to me. Petrosky definitely likes to grapple. Let's see how Edmund Shabazian has held up in the grappling department now. I know it was tough against Gerald Meerschaert, but I think Gerald Meerschaert's a tricky fight. And he kind of came back and won that one when Edmund Shabazian was doing initially very well in the takedown defense department. Petrosky, I agree, his grappling, his offensive grappling and his wrestling is better. But I think he stinks at striking. I think his striking, he leaves a lot to be desired, and there's opportunity for Edmund Shabazian to get a KO there. They're both middleweights, fought on the same card. Both are not getting shots at the rankings anytime soon. So let's see it happen. Edmund Shabazian, Armen Petrosky. I don't fucking care when this happens, to be honest. I mean, they both didn't take much damage, so I would say make a quick turnaround. Prelims of the card in UFC 315 in Canada. It's cool with me. Moving on. Nazim Sadikov, big win. Questionable win, but he won. I think it's the Thiago Moises test. It's time to see if this guy really belongs in the top 25 of the division, Nazim Sadikov. I think you give him the Thiago Moises test. Test his grappling. test his durability, test his ability to go 3 rounds. Nazim Sadikov and Thiago Moises make sense to me. Prelims of a pay-per-view in Brazil, I think that would be great. And speaking of prelims of a pay-per-view in Brazil, Ishmael Bonfim, we're coming up next. Jared Gordon. Listen, I know Ishmael Bonfim's going to need some time off. Maybe Jared Gordon gets like a spontaneous fight coming up soon that he gets to, get a win and then fight Ishmael Bonfim. But I think this fight makes a ton of sense. Similar skill levels, I believe. You have Jared Gordon, who's a good fighter who consistently gets robbed, against Ishmael Bonfim, who's kind of a hype train for the Brazilian MMA scene. I think it makes sense. Both lightweights. I know Ishmael Bonfim took some damage to the eye, but realistically, he could have kept going. So I'd expect him to want to make a turnaround within 4 months. I'm sure Jared Gordon's going to want to fight again soon. So this makes sense to me. Jared Gordon, Ishmael Bonfim. Let's see that one. Gabriel Bonfim, big win over Chaos Williams, nasty submission. I think the Renat Fakhretdinov fight's the one to go. If I'm not mistaken, these two were supposed to fight and the fight fell through. I think this one would be great. You have a tremendous jiu-jitsu style grappler with Gabriel Bonfim, with a boring, lazy wrestler in Renat Fakhretdinov, who is a dominant grappler. He is a very, very good grappler in the wrestling department. But he's coming off a robbery win in his last fight. I don't think the UFC is looking to do him any favors, considering he literally just holds people against the cage the entire fight. I think this makes a lot of sense. Let's see who wins. Gabriel Bonfim, Renat Fakhretdinov. Winner can really start to take a look at those top 20, maybe the 15th ranked guy. Would love to see that one. If they go to Brazil, do that. If they go to, I don't go to Abu Dhabi with Renat, because they'll just fucking give a fight to him, even if he loses clearly. But let's see this one happen in June. May, June. Would love to see it. Book the rematch, or book the fight. Rebook the fight. Losing my mind, man. Jose Miguel Delgado, good win, good knockout win over a Connor Matthews, who will probably get cut at this point. Jeka Saragi, not much hype behind this guy, but he's a good opponent that I think recently had a win over Weston Wilson. I think he had the knockout win over Weston Wilson, and probably just book these two against each other. It's a good step up in comp a little bit for Jose Delgado, but it's also not a tough fight. So let's see how he does against someone with a little bit of pop, but it's a winnable fight for Jose Miguel Delgado, and I think that's what they're looking for here. So I think that one makes sense. June, totally cool with me. Honestly, dude, no, fucking quicker. Dude, book this in April. Go to Miami, put this on the prelims. Delgado can turn around quick, because he took literally no damage. But let's go with Rafael Estevam next. This guy's ranked, got ripped off a couple of wins, but he's super inactive, and that's his problem. He does have a win over the ranked Charles Johnson. I think before he gets a ranked opponent next, would like to see him against Cody Durden, know that he can get in the octagon quickly. So let's watch it. Rafael Estevam, Cody Durden, UFC 316 prelim fight. Think it's a good one to make happen. Just outside the rankings, the first guy outside the rankings is Cody Durden, so I think that one makes sense for Rafael Estevam. If he wins that, then he can start to look in the 8 to 15 range, and you really have a litany of opponents you can start to look at, because a lot of the flyweights are booked up right now. Could fight the loser of Josh Van, Bruno Silva, but I don't know if Bruno Silva is going to stay in the UFC if he gets a win, because with the way UFC is cutting people for just losing a couple times is ridiculous. But anyway, we're going to move on. Angela Hill got a split decision win in classic Angela Hill fashion. Marina Rodriguez, think that one makes sense. Haven't seen them fight in a while. I'm sure Angela Hill's fought her at some point in her career, but haven't seen them fight in a while. So yeah, you can do that one. Prelims of anything. Prelims, guys. Prelims. Also, speaking of prelims, Ketlin Souza, Luana Santos. Listen, I don't want to see my Pookie Bear Luana Santos go down, but it makes sense. Similar spots, and they're both unranked. Both can have one win to take a shot at the rankings again. They're both top outside the rankings strawweight, so totally cool seeing that one happen. Just want to see Luana Santos get back in the octagon, honestly. So, you know why. But we're going to move on. Elijah Smith. What's Elijah Smith got against Cody Gibson? I think it's a good step up in competition to see where this guy is. Come up against a little bit more of a veteran presence of a fighter. Cody Gibson's got a fight coming up. Win or lose, I think Elijah Smith's a good opponent for him. Cody Gibson is he's pretty well-rounded. when I say well-rounded, he does everything with the same level of skill, I honestly believe. And I think that's going to be interesting to see how it works out for Elijah Smith. Give him a couple of these, tested vets. If he can get through them at the age that he's at right now, 22 years old, he's going to have a promising future. We got to test him because we got to see how good he is. And it's like, even if he gets one loss, he's so young that he can bounce back and get a win. So he can get bounce back and even find his way to the rankings in, the next 3 years. So Elijah Smith, Cody Gibson is a fight that I'd like to see happen. Walter Walker, this guy's going to be ranked 14, 15. Waldo, haven't seen Waldo in the octagon recently. Very much dislike Waldo Cortez Acosta. I'd like to see Walter Walker fucking heel hook him and blow his knee out. So let's do Walter Walker versus Waldo Cortez Acosta. Finally punish Waldo Cortez Acosta for the fucking disrespect he showed Andrei Arlovsky when they fought. So I think this can be a quick turnaround. This screams prelim co-headliner in the UFC 314 card of Miami. I'm willing to bet Walter Walker is ready to turn around. He's got a super quick submission victory in the first round. Waldo Cortez Acosta hasn't fought in a hot minute, so I think Walter Walker, Waldo Cortez Acosta, turn around, fight in April in UFC 314. Gives Walter Walker 2 months, but the guy's in camp. He just fought, got a great heel hook victory. Get back into camp next week and start getting ready for another fight because he can really rocket up the rankings here. And Jacqueline Cavalcanti beats Julia Avila. I think the Carol Rosa test is the next one to make for jumping up in the rankings. But yeah, I'm not going to spend too much time on it. It makes sense for me. Hope you enjoyed the video, guys. This is the UFC Vegas 102 matchmaking. There are some interesting matchups in here, but if you did enjoy the video, please like and subscribe. It would mean a lot.